Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Many are in mourning today following the death of Prince Philip. The husband of Queen Elizabeth passed away 2 months shy of his 100th birthday. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney has sent out a warning to MLAs who've been publicly opposing provincial COVID-19 health restrictions. And U.S. President Joe Biden says he has a plan to tackle the out-of-control gun violence in his country.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh and the husband to Queen Elizabeth, has died. He was 99, just 2 months shy of his 100th birthday. The prince was known as the Queen's bedrock and faithfully promoted British business and science around the world. We have more now in this report.
Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, husband of Queen Elizabeth II, has died. Born in 1921, Philip was a member of the Greek royal family in exile. He was descendant from Danish and German royalty and, like Elizabeth, was the great-grandchild of Queen Victoria. Philip entered Dartmouth Naval College as a cadet in 1939. When Italy invaded Greece, he entered the war on the battleship Valiant in the Mediterranean and later served in the Pacific. On leaving Britain, he visited his royal cousins, and by the end of the war, it was clear he was courting Princess Elizabeth, eldest child and heir of King George VI. Their engagement was announced in July 1947, and they were married in November.
And how they cheered the happy pair when they came out onto the balcony.
After an initial flurry of disapproval that Elizabeth was marrying a foreigner, Philip's athletic skill, good looks, and straight talk lent a distinct glamour to the royal family. Having given up his promising naval career to become consort when Elizabeth became queen at age 25, Philip was not content to stay on the sidelines and enjoy a life of ease and wealth. He promoted British industry and science and espoused environmental preservation long before it was fashionable.
Only lunatics would so reduce the renewable resources they don't renew anymore.
He announced in May 2017 he planned to step back from his royal duties after roughly 22,000 royal engagements. Philip is survived by his wife, Queen Elizabeth II, and his children, Princes Charles, Andrew, and Edwards, and Princess Anne. David Martin, The Associated Press.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson paid tribute to Prince Philip, saying he served his country very well.
He was the longest-serving consort in history, one of the last surviving people in this country to have served in the Second World War. At Cape Matapan, where he was mentioned in dispatches for bravery, and in the invasion of Sicily, where he saved his ship by his quick thinking. He helped to steer the royal family and the monarchy so that it remains an institution indisputably vital to the balance and happiness of our national life.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau issued a statement today on the death of Prince Philip. Trudeau says, Prince Philip was a man of great purpose and conviction. He'll be fondly remembered as a lifelong companion who was always at the Queen's side, offering unfailing support as she carried out her duties. He adds that Canadians' thoughts are with the Queen and her family as they mourn a significant loss. The Canadian Armed Forces also sent a message of condolence to the royal family, sending love from Canada. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney also released a statement following the death of the Prince. Kenney says Albertans join other Canadians and all members of the Commonwealth in mourning his passing. Prince Philip was a great friend to Alberta, visiting our province many times since his first visit with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, then Princess Elizabeth in 1951. His involvement with a great number of charitable organizations offered Albertans a shining example of public service. The Lethbridge Legion also responded to the death of Prince Philip.
General Stewart Branch is the kind of known seat or location that identifies with the military, and of course Prince Philip was in the military himself, and we're all very, very saddened. All Canadians are, and I'm sure all Lethbridge people as well. Lethbridge contributed a huge, much greater than probably the rest of the country proportionally to the war efforts. We're all very, very saddened by the passing of Prince Philip, and we, on behalf of the Legion, I extend our condolences to the royal family.
Each year on this day, the Battle of Vimy Ridge is remembered. In 1917, Canadian soldiers captured most of Vimy Ridge in a single day, becoming a key moment in Canadian history. Many of these Canadians reside right here in Lethbridge.
Vimy Ridge Armory, which is located beside the armory and where the militia train, was renamed from Kenyon Field Armory in 2001. And there's a monument just outside the front door. And I also have here a letter that was written on Vimy Ridge Day by a local member from the 20th Battery. And it talks about the human connections. He can handle the carnage on the battlefield. What was driving him mostly impactful and sorrowful, he couldn't help his mom back here in Lethbridge. There's a book called Vimy, Valor and Victory. It's put out by a Canadian author. And all the photographs from World War I were black and white. But this book has a lot of the pages are all colorized, and these horses are bringing up ammunition at Vimy Ridge, and these are members from the Lethbridge 20th Battery.
Now, speaking of local heroes, the Legion needs our help. The COVID-19 pandemic has hit them very hard financially here in Lethbridge. The Legion, which has been in the community for 44 years, has started a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for a new roof.
It is an older building, of course. We've been dealing with roof problems because it is a tar and gravel roof. Once they get to leak, they go all over the place. So we've about 5 years ago or so, we had to replace the major portion of our roof because there was some major leaking going on there.
All I want to do is just to make sure that everybody understands that the funds that we currently hold in the Poppy Fund just cannot be made available for anything to do with maintenance or anything to do with the building. For that purpose, however, I think that most people in the community value the history of the Royal Canadian Legion and to value the service given by veterans in the past. I think that we enjoy freedom in this country because of the service that took place. And often I think we take that freedom that we enjoy for granted.
The campaign's goal is to raise $20,000, and if you'd like to donate, you can visit GoFundMe.ca. The 10th annual Coaldale 5K Family Fun Run will take place as a virtual run this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As Micah Quinn explains, organizers say the event is looking to get even more runners off their couches than ever before.
The Dinos were out in full force in support of the Coaldale 5K Family Fun Run. Even though this run will be virtual, it means a whole week's worth of participation for runners from April 19th to the 26th.
So with this event being virtual this year, race organizers didn't even know what to expect. So we decided to create videos that we could post on social media to raise awareness about the event and also to promote our sponsors. But it turned into something much more than that. It became a way for us to infuse some fun and some camaraderie into our community.
Participants are being encouraged to time how long it takes to run their 5K, and then they can enter their numbers online.
We also encourage people to take pictures and hashtag Coaldale Fun Run. We have tons of prizes. We have medals for the top 3 contestants in every category. It's just a lot of fun. We also have prizes for the fastest overall male and female. We have a prize for the fastest stroller pusher. We also have a prize for the largest family, the oldest contestant, the youngest contestant.
Hartorn says in the past few years, there's been approximately 700 to 750 people that have signed up for the run.
Because you can sign up from all over the world, our goal is to have 1,000 people sign up for this event.
$2 of every entry goes to the Segway Home for Women in Lethbridge.
Segway Women's House is a safe place where women can reclaim their independence and their lives. The rest of the proceeds go to various community enhancement projects. This year they are earmarked for improvements to the Pinnacle Park here in Coaldale, including the resurfacing of a field to make it safe for soccer and other sports. And additionally, we hope to create an outdoor hockey arena.
To register for the event, runners can visit racepro.ca/Coaldale. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
The March unemployment numbers blew past expectations. Stats Canada says the economy added 303,000 jobs last month, pushing down the unemployment rate from 8.2 to 7.5%. There was a slight bump in the accommodation and food services sector of 21,000 jobs. The industry, however, is still the furthest away from a full recovery at 24.4%, or close to 300,000 jobs below pre-pandemic levels. There were also around 95,000 more retail jobs added last month. As for the Lethbridge Medicine Hat region, our economic jobless rate was 9.5% last month. The rate for the province is 9.1%. Now, Stats Canada says Alberta added 37,000 jobs in March. Looking at unemployment numbers across the province, Edmonton is the highest at 11.3%. Calgary's next at 10.4%. Red Deer comes in third at 10.2%. Banff, Jasper, Grand Prairie, and Peace River at 10%. As mentioned, Lethbridge and Medicine Hat had a 9.5% unemployment rate. In the Camrose-Drumheller region, it's 9.1%, and Wood Buffalo Cold Lake is also at 9.1%. 10 school boards in the province have released statements that they do not agree with the province's new kindergarten through grade 6 curriculum draft. Lethbridge is on that list. A poll from the Alberta Teachers Association finds that 90% of teachers and 95% of principals do not agree with the new curriculum. NDP's education critic Sarah Hoffman says a large concern for teachers and parents is that the curriculum does not align with truth and reconciliation with Indigenous communities.
I know kids who have participated in Orange Shirt Day, and they get what it means. You don't need to go into the details with a 5-year-old, but you could talk about the idea of being separated from your family and your community, and that was wrong. 5-year-olds know right and wrong. Like if you're at the playground and they say, hey, that's not fair, like they get what fairness is, and they're very capable of empathy and understanding. And I think that's one of the reasons why making sure that we're open and honest in a developmentally appropriate way was one of the calls to action for the Truth and the Reconciliation Commission. And I think the government should follow it.
UCP Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf was unavailable for comment. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney is warning government members who publicly oppose new COVID-19 health restrictions that they could get punted from caucus. 15 UCP MLAs signed an open letter this week calling the changes a step backwards that threatens livelihoods and freedoms. They also called for restrictions eased on religious services. Kenney says dissent is democratic, but he told party MLAs today that breaking health rules or encouraging others to do so will result in disciplinary actions that includes the potential of getting kicked out of caucus. For our poll question this week, with all of the government restrictions and lockdowns taking place across the country, we asked if you miss going to live sporting events or concerts, and the results are in. 72% of you said yes, you do. I know I certainly do. We will have a new poll question next week asking if you feel the Alberta government taking us back to step 1 of restrictions is a good idea. Log on to our website, bridgecitynews.ca, and make sure you vote. Let your voice be heard. The province has given funding to the University of Alberta to accelerate research and development of pharmaceutical and vaccine treatments. The $20 million cash infusion over 4 years will go to the Li Ka-shing Applied Virology Institute at the university. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney says this investment will allow Alberta to make a real contribution to the global fight against COVID-19 and other viral diseases.
There will be future contagious diseases that pose a grave threat to public health, and we must be better prepared for those in terms of biotechnology. That's one of the reasons why the Li Ka-shing Institute can play such a critically important role. And it can also be a key part of the growing bioscience industry in Alberta. This is a global industry worth well over $1 trillion in the global economy. We need to play a larger role in that.
Employees at the Alberta beef packing plant where a COVID-19 outbreak erupted last year will be able to get vaccinated at work. Alberta Health Services says nurses employed by Cargill will deliver the shots at its High River plant south of Calgary as soon as vaccines are available. Cargill says vaccinations will be voluntary at the facility, where nearly half of the 2,200 workers contracted COVID-19 last spring, including 2 people who died. AHS says the pilot project could be expanded into other plants in the coming weeks. First Nations in Northern Alberta are asking the province to retract its New Forests Act before it becomes law next month. Treaty 8 Grand Chief Arthur Noski says it was drafted without consultation with Indigenous communities and violates the right to the traditional use of forests. He says logging is harming animal numbers and impacts activities such as gathering medicinal plants. The amount of logging in Alberta has increased under the UCP government. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Ottawa's response to the COVID-19 pandemic has been successful in northern communities thanks to the collaboration between his government and Inuit leadership. Trudeau does say, however, that more work is needed.
This year, we worked together to address challenges the pandemic poses for Inuit communities. We're getting people vaccinated as fast as possible. More than 50% of adults living in Inuit Nunangat have received at least 1 shot. We're also collaborating closely with provinces and territories, Inuit partners, and other community service organizations to increase Indigenous urban vaccination. On many fronts, the pandemic has highlighted existing economic and social inequalities. We need to keep working together to close gaps in everything from food security to housing to health care.
The union representing Saskatchewan correctional officers is calling on the province to prioritize its members for vaccinations. 23 new coronavirus cases were reported recently at the Regina Provincial Correctional Centre. The Saskatchewan Government and General Employees Union says it also wants to incorporate rapid tests at correctional facilities. In total, there have been 150 staff members and close to 500 inmates who've tested positive for COVID-19 across all provincial institutions as of Wednesday. Ontario is reporting a near-record 4,227 new COVID-19 infections, along with 18 more deaths. More than a third of the nearly 1,500 in hospital are currently in intensive care. There are 344 people on ventilators. Ontario Premier Doug Ford received his first dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine today and has a goal of getting 40% of Ontarians their first dose over the next 4 weeks. Now, some very sad news south of the border. Former NFL player Philip Adams killed 5 people, including a doctor, his wife, and 2 grandchildren in South Carolina before turning a gun on himself.
Once we cleared the home, we found Dr. Robert Leslie and his wife Barbara and their 2 grandchildren in a room in the back of the house, all deceased with gunshot wounds. One living victim, one of the air conditioning techs, was transported from the scene. We were able to develop Philip Adams as a suspect in this incident. We were able later on in the evening to make contact with Mr. Adams' father, who lived with the suspect at the time. We were able to remove Mr. Adams and later Mrs. Adams from the home, as we had a search warrant for the home and for Philip Adams.
U.S. President Joe Biden announced that he is addressing gun violence in his country. Insisting it's an epidemic and not a partisan issue, Biden pledged that he is willing to work with anyone to get more done.
This is a view by the American people as an American issue. And I'm willing to work with anyone to get these done. And it's long past time that we act. I know that the conversation about guns in this country can be a difficult one. But even here, there's much more common ground than anyone would believe. There's much more common ground. Everything that's being proposed today is totally consistent with the Second Amendment. And there's a wide consensus behind the need to take action. No matter how long it takes, we're going to get these passed. We're not going to give up. We have an opportunity to fulfill the first responsibility of government, to keep our people safe.
Looks like it was a beautiful day there. Well, here we had lots of cloud cover, wind, and slightly cooler temperatures in many regions of southwestern Alberta, and the cooler temperatures will remain as we head into the weekend. A complete look at the weather picture is coming up. We had a mixture of sun and cloud today and slightly cooler with those strong winds once again here in southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Rocher is back with a complete look at the long-range weather forecast. Jeanette, as we head into the weekend, there's a chance we may see some shower activity in our region?
Yeah, absolutely we will, Hal. Whether we like it or not, we're going to be seeing that low pressure system sweeping back in, bringing with it a 60% chance of showers late in tomorrow afternoon. That would be on Saturday afternoon, and the chance of snow or flurries overnight on a Saturday night. Low or high rather of 7 degrees on Saturday into Sunday, 5 degrees the high. Mix of sun and cloud as that precipitation dissipates into Monday, 3 degrees the high. Tuesday, 3 as well. We do have a 30% chance of rain showers or flurries lasting through Tuesday night into Wednesday. 30% chance again of showers, possibly some flurries. 6 degrees is the high for Wednesday, 10 the high for Thursday with a mix of sun and clouds. So we are doing that little roller coaster effect as it is springtime in southern Alberta. Average high for this time of year, 12 degrees, average low -2. 25 was our high temperature back in 1996, and in 1990 we had our chilliest day, which was -15. 6:51 is when the sun rose this morning. At 8:15 will be our Friday evening, a sunset. It is Friday, so happy Friday, everyone. Let's see what's happening on Saturday across the nation. A high of 10 degrees in both Victoria and Vancouver. Victoria could experience some showers, mix of sun and cloud in Vancouver. Both cities a little bit windy near the water. 6 degrees the high in both Edmonton and Calgary, both experiencing rain showers. Edmonton could see a bit of flurries also with those showers. As we look further into the prairies here, mix of sun and cloud in Saskatoon, high 13, 16 the high for Regina, and 14 degrees in Winnipeg with beautiful blue skies and a sunshine. Not too bad at all. As we look further east into central Canada, this is where it gets really great. 22 the high for Toronto. Look at this here, Ottawa, 26, sunshine. It's practically summer there. 24 the high in Montreal tomorrow with a mix of sun and clouds. So lovely days in central Canada. Not as much for the east coast here. We're looking at showers in Fredericton, 13 degrees the high, 13 for Halifax. Also experiencing some fog in the morning, dissipating later on in the day. Charlottetown, high 5 degrees, 0 the high in St. John's. They're looking at periods of rain or snow, risk of freezing rain, and 2 centimeters of the white stuff in St. John's. So they're getting a little bit of everything, and 60K winds on top of it all. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Stats Canada says the economy added 303,000 jobs last month. That outpaced the gain of 259,000 in February. Around 95,000 jobs were added in retail, along with another 21,000 in accommodation and food services. The gain sent the unemployment rate down to a pandemic-era low of 7.5% from the 8.2% in February. MTY Food Group says its first quarter profit was down nearly 30% from a year ago as it continued to deal with the impact of the pandemic. The restaurant franchising company says its profit fell to $13.4 million as revenue dropped 21% to $119 million. The company behind more than 80 restaurant brands, including Thai Express and Tutti Frutti, says sales at malls were down 69%, while office tower sales dropped 89%. MTY says 321 locations were still temporarily closed due to the pandemic, including 195 here in Canada. Boeing has informed 16 of its customers that they should address a possible electrical issue in certain 737 MAX jets before using them further. Boeing says the recommendation was made to allow for verification that a sufficient ground path exists for a component of the electrical power system. It did not specify how many aircraft could be impacted. Southwest Airlines says it has 58 of its 737 MAX 8 aircraft, and the 30 planes affected by the notification have been removed from its schedule until further notice. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down just under a point today to finish at 19,228. The Dow was up 297 points to 33,801. The S&P 500 was up 31 points to 4129, and the Nasdaq was up 70 points to 13,900. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 26 cents to 59.34 US per barrel. Natural gas was unchanged at 2.52 US. Gold was down 11.96 to $1,743.88 an ounce, and silver was down 19 cents to 25.27 US an ounce. Wheat is at $318 per metric ton. Barley is at $325, canola is at $8.13, and corn is at $354 per metric ton. Live cattle were down 73 cents to $123.43. Feeder cattle were down $2.38 to $144.75, and lean hogs were unchanged at $103.48. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 79.81 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Alberta Premier Jason Kenney is warning government members who publicly oppose new COVID-19 health restrictions that they could be punted from caucus. 15 UCP MLAs signed an open letter this week calling the changes a step backward that threatens livelihoods and freedoms. Having a healthy marriage is vital when it comes to raising well-adjusted and healthy children. Now that's according to marriage coach Brent Taylor. He has more details in an interview with Jeanette Rocher coming up in just a moment.
It's a topic we've been focusing on quite a bit lately, marital relationships, because they're challenging even in the best of times. But with the stress of COVID restrictions, it's put even more stress on marriage relationships. Today's guest says although there are different causes of relational breakdowns, there's one in particular that is the biggest issue, and we will chat about that today. Brent Taylor is a Lethbridge marriage coach and the author of Hers, Greatest Need. Welcome, Brent, to Bridge City News. We're so glad to have you on today.
Thank you, Jeanette. I'm honored to be here. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, so can you briefly share a bit about what you do to help couples improve their relationships?
Well, I have a marriage builder program. I call it UCG. It includes my book, which is His and Hers Greatest Need, and the single biggest reason why marriages break down and how to build it up. And with that program, I've developed understanding, communication, and giving. And there's multiple elements within that program. It's either a 5-session or 8-session program, and it really helps restore marriages. So I've been doing that for a number of years.
Awesome. Now, this book is based upon some of your own personal experiences, right? So you yourself have gone through divorce and some tough times. Can you maybe give us a bit of your backstory?
Sure. Well, born and raised in Calgary, 1962, and moved around a few places and was married young, and have 3 awesome children. They're 34 and 32 and 28 and 3 grandchildren. And I worked about 25 years in the oil patch. And then I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was going to be somebody. And because I wanted to find somebody, because I felt, I guess I was rejected most of my marriage. Anyways, I raised $20 million and I built the largest manufacturing plant in Canada, in Lethbridge, actually in the county, BCT Structures. And I was on top of the world. I moved back to Lethbridge. I'd lived here before. And I was going somewhere, and I thought I'd find that amazing relationship that I was looking for. And I got it up to about 130 employees. It's a huge manufacturing plant making industrial accommodations for the oil patch primarily, the rig shacks and the camp shacks. And so I was just on top of the world, and I just loved the employees. I loved the whole business aspect. And then I lost it all. I was living with somebody here, and I lost my $50 million company, and I had to be broken to be awoken. And then I remarried a few years later, and I thought this was it. And I married somebody that had been badly beaten in her childhood, and I didn't realize, but I was husband number 5, and God still had to keep working on me. And about a year later, I never saw her again. And I looked up and I said, "Why, God, why?" And he started to show me his and hers greatest need, the single biggest need, and the single biggest reason why marriages break down. So I started drawing my circles, and I started taking jobs after about a year of writing my book and crying my eyes out, lots of tears. And then I started taking jobs, and I started confirming and doing my research and surveying. And up to now, probably well over 11,000 people I've shared this with. Ministers in Calgary, ministers in Medicine Hat, Christians, non-Christians, Muslims, 82-22, and every one of them has said this is the greatest need, the greatest breakdown, but we didn't know it. Wow. So what I teach is not taught in the church, is not taught in the counselor's office. And roughly we have an 80% divorce rate in North America and much of the Western world. 69% of those divorces are being initiated by wives. Call it the walk-away wife syndrome. We tend to follow the sheep. And I think a lot of people don't realize the single biggest impact on a child's life is not your parenting. It's your marriage. And so
the parents' marriage. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're at an all-time high for mental health. Before COVID, we were.
Absolutely.
You know, we had lots of issues around division and gender and depression and single parents. Technology added to all that division. And we were just on a downhill slide, and especially in Alberta, because the oil patch went up like this, and then it went down like this. And there's a saying that says, a wife's loyalty is tested when her husband has nothing. And a husband's loyalty is tested when he has everything. And unfortunately, we make it about the money.
Now, Brent, you were mentioning that in your book, you talk about the biggest break. So tell me, what is the biggest breakdown that causes marriages to break down?
First, I have to give you the greatest need.
Okay, please do so.
Right? Because that need is not being filled.
Right.
And then the way it gets treated causes the single biggest breakdown.
Right.
So I'll verbally explain it. I normally draw circles. I can't talk too much unless I draw circles. But anyways, the greatest need for a man is significance. He wants to be his wife's hero. There's not a man in the world that doesn't want to be his wife's hero. He might suck at it, but he wants to be. Because every little boy knows, do I got what it takes? Right? And there's not a woman in the world that doesn't want to be fought for. So if she's going to be fought for, who's going to be the one who fights for her? Her hero. It all boils down to God's design. He's our hero, and he asks husbands to love their wives like Christ loved the church. So who's our hero? And so he wants to be our hero. So his greatest need is significance. And her greatest need is security, emotional and physical security. Yes, financial, but she'll take the emotional and physical security first.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
Right. So in the beginning of the relationship, now I usually say the sex and the roses are great. He feels like number one, significance, and she's going to live happily ever after, security. And then she's trying to drag his butt over the white picket fence to responsibility land. And he says, it's not as fun over here as it used to be. And women, you also have to play over here where you met him. But here's where the big test comes. When the children start coming. When a man and woman are together just themselves, that intimacy they have, that oxytocin release, that chemical bonder, when they're physically intimate. Well, Mama Bear has that when she's birthing and nursing. He doesn't get what she's getting, and she doesn't get why he doesn't get what she's getting. So he feels like number four. Every man feels insignificant to his wife when those children come. He used to be number one, and now he's number four. She doesn't understand because she's happy. She's living happily ever after, and she is bonded so closely with that child in her womb and as she's nursing. So those first couple of years, that bond is so tight, and she doesn't understand why he's feeling like number four. And here's the breakdown. Every man, when he feels insignificant, so when I lost my $50 million company, when I lost my marriage, my daughter wouldn't speak to me for 6 months. I was nobody. And when a man feels like nobody, he retreats. He goes inside himself. It's a fear-based response. And fear stands for false evidence appearing real. He doesn't even know he's doing it. And when he retreats, he's trying to fill the void. He works more, he gambles more, he porns more, drinks more, plays around more. He's trying to fill the void because he wants to be his wife's hero.
Mm-hmm. So what are some ways that a wife can do that for her husband? How can she build this significance in her husband?
Right. So her security, I'll come to that in about 30 seconds here. Her
Okay.
security is threatened. When her security is threatened because he's retreating, she feels abandoned. Her autopilot fear-based response is not to retreat. She attacks or rejects him. She's trying to teach him a lesson, don't you abandon me, but it doesn't come out right as she's chucking the frying pan across the room. He takes it literally. She doesn't say what she means. She wants him to stay, not disengage, but he takes it literally and retreats some more. And then she feels more insecure, more abandonment, more attack and reject, and it goes around and around and around. So I tell men, when you're loving your children and picking up the vacuum and helping with the home and making date nights, you are loving your wife, because a woman's brain is very busy. She's about 15 to 20% busier than a guy's brain. Not inferior, superior, just busy. She's got lots of things on the go. He's more singularly focused. And then I say to wives, when you're loving your husband, you're loving your children. Because with those children, when they came along, the balance went out of whack. she was going to the children instead of to him. And he was going to her and she's going to the children. So now it's tilted. So to help put it back in balance, he needs to go to the children and she needs to go to her husband.
Okay, yeah, because in your book, you do write that when a woman is loving her husband, she's actually loving her children. And is that what you mean by that?
Yes, absolutely. She's putting that balance back in the family, because if you don't have your marriage, you don't have a family.
Yeah. So I know that you also mentioned that for women, their biggest needs is security. So what do you mean by that exactly? And when a wife isn't finding that sense of security, how does she, you're kind of mentioning some of her coping mechanisms that aren't necessarily good, and they could be contributing to the marital breakdown, right? It affects the relationship.
So she's looking for security, and she's also looking for maturity. That's what she's looking for in a husband, because that gives security. When she first gets married, she's not looking for a lover. She's looking for maturity. She's looking for somebody like her father, because she's actually leaving one man and being transferred to another man. And he's designed to protect and provide. So if you're a protector and a provider, you need to be mature. And that's because she needs security. Here's a classic example. Little Johnny's climbing an apple tree. He climbs halfway up and Mama Bear comes by and says, Johnny, you better be careful. You better get down from there. You're going to break a leg. She's worried about safety and security. God made woman so that she looks after those things. She uses the frontal part of her lobe more for safety and security than a man does for consequential thinking. That's the way she was designed. Papa Bear sees Johnny climbing a tree, says, Johnny, good job. If you can reach here and here, you can go higher. Significance, right?
Yeah.
Same thing if you go out in a strange city in a junky neighborhood and it's pitch black out, are you going to want to go outside by yourself, or are you going to want your husband, a friend, or a dog to go with you?
Right, of course. There we go with the security.
Most men will go out in the dark by themselves, and they're not too worried, because men are more designed to take a risk.
True.
And they're designed to take a risk so that they can sacrifice their life for their wife and their children.
Interesting.
She wasn't designed for that.
Yeah, it's interesting how it all kind of comes back to those primal needs. So what are some ways that a husband can go about making his wife feel more secure? What can he do?
Well, there's a variety of things. I ask men to listen to their wife with their eyes and zip their lip. So if there's any men, guys, listen with your eyes and zip your lip.
I like that.
Because most men think, why are we talking unless we're solving a problem? Women think, why are we solving a problem? I just want you to listen. And here's what women don't even know. And when I share it with them, they go, yeah, that's it. Because the problem's not the problem. Men go, what do you mean the problem's not the problem? She wants to know that you care about how she feels about the problem. She wants you to listen to her heart. If you try to solve her problem or fix her problem, often women take it critically. He's not trying to criticize. That's how he loves. He loves solvingly and physically. Men's brains are wired more physically, testosterone, and solvingly, how things move and objects. So he's more about the how, right? So that's why he's doing that. Well, she doesn't take it the right way, so she shuts down and then she rejects him. So I tell men, she's not looking for solutions. She's looking for you to listen to her heart. So that's one of the ways. She needs to feel safe before she can trust you with her heart. The other way is to help her take some of those plates that she's juggling in the air, whether it's kids or the house or whatever else. So she's very busy. So helping her out and really being engaged with your children. Mama bears know intuitively how important a father is to those children. And when dads just come home and they ignore the children, or they do their thing, or they don't spend time with their children, she knows that those children need it. So that bonding and that responsibility is so strong with mom. So when dads actually show that they're doing that, it warms her heart, because she is so focused on the development of those children. So that's also loving her. The greatest way a husband loves his wife is he stays. He doesn't retreat. He never quits loving her. He might screw up, but he continues to learn how to love her and what she needs, because he is the leader of love. He is the initiator of unity. Who puts his arm out to ask to go for a dance? Who goes down on one knee? He makes the offer. He's the initiator. He's the leader. But he's the leader because he puts her ahead of himself.
That's so
So
interesting.
he's the leader because he puts himself last. That's why he's the leader.
We're such different creatures, aren't we?
Yes. I always say when God made man, he said it was good. And when he made woman, he said, whoo, man.
Yeah,
not just because she's pretty, because he's going to need her and he's not going to quite understand her.
Well, you've got such a wealth of information here and expertise and experience, and we could go on all day talking about it, but it looks like we're actually out of time. But we just appreciate so much having you on today, Brent.
Thank you very much. It's my passion. And can I share a little poem with you?
Of course.
Okay. And I hope that couples will reach out and give me a call. The poem is, woman was made from man and for man, not from his feet or his head, to be beneath or above, but from his side to walk alongside, under his arm to be protected, near his heart to be loved. And where he is weak, she is strong. And where she is weak, he is strong. Husband and wife are completers, not competers. They're the greatest team between two human beings. And when God is at the top and the center of their lives, they will know how to love one another, their family, their community, and their world.
I love it. Thank you so much. Brent Taylor is a Lethbridge marriage coach and the author of His, Hers, Greatest Need. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
We all want to get healthy, but it's tough to do in today's very busy fast food kind of world. Today's guest has some timely advice on the topic. Dr. Don Colbert. He's a board-certified family practice doctor for more than 25 years and a best-selling author as well. His latest book is Dr. Colbert's Healthy Gut Zone, Heal Your Digestive System to Restore Your Body and Renew Your Mind. Dr. Colbert, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you. It's great being here.
Now, judging by the title of your book, it sounds like gut health is vital to the rest of our overall health?
Absolutely right. In fact, Hippocrates, back in 400 BC or around then, said that all disease begins in your gut. And just now we're learning that he was absolutely right. But most of us just think of gut health as digestion, heartburn, clearing up heartburn, clearing up constipation or diarrhea. But there's so much more. 2/3 of our immune system is located in our gut. To have good mental health, we need to have a healthy gut. We're finding now that if the gut is compromised, people are more prone to depression and anxiety, as well as even dementia is linked to the gut through the vagus nerve. It actually is a nerve that runs from the colon and the GI tract all the way up to the brain stem. And when there's a leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability in the gut, eventually there will become a leaky brain where you get more inflammation in the brain with memory loss, with dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. And so again, I discuss all this. Even obesity is linked to the gut, especially your good bacteria. Certain good bacteria help prevent obesity by reducing our cravings for all the sweets and carbs and starches that cause obesity and all the fast foods that we crave.
Now, so you're saying whatever inflames our gut will eventually inflame our brain and the rest of our body at the same time, which, like you said, potentially leads to what, dementia and Alzheimer's?
Right, and even ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is many times related to the gut. And what is happening is so many doctors are prescribing meds like antibiotics that may help with strep throat and other problems, infectious disease, but they eventually harm the gut. They kill off the good bacteria. They cause bad bacteria to grow, as well as other meds like anti-inflammatories, acid-blocking meds. These are some of the most common causes of gut issues that eventually will lead to other gut problems and eventually systemic problems such as autoimmune disease. So I discuss all this because it all started with me years ago. Back 30 years ago, I developed psoriasis. But I was a young doctor back then. I was treating patients day and night. I was on call every night. But then one morning, I woke up with psoriasis, and I went to my dermatologist buddy, and he gave me, these creams with coal tar that smelled horrible. With a long story, making it short, I got sick of this coal tar and I said, that's it, I'm going to find the answer. I healed the gut, and within a few months, the psoriasis was gone. But I traced it back to I was using antibiotics, off and on for a few years, because when I would get sick, I didn't have time to stop working. So I'd take an antibiotic for a week or 10 days, clear the infection up, but I decimated my gut. When I healed my gut, the autoimmune disease went away, as well as my gut issues and the brain fog and all the other problems I was having, like fatigue. And so I've been doing this now for over 30 years, teaching people how to heal the gut, but we have so much more information now and so much about the gut and the microbiome, which is so exciting. And now we have the tools to heal the gut. And the main tool is our food.
So making the right food choices will have a major influence on our health. What kinds of food should we be putting on the never touch list?
Okay, well, this is what surprises so many people. In order to heal the gut, I list the 10 most common foods that really wreak havoc on the gut. And the most common I see that consistently wreaks havoc on the gut is gluten or wheat. And I tell patients with gut issues, stop eating the wheat or the gluten for a few months and let's let the gut heal. The other most common is foods that are high in lectins. Now, most people have never heard about lectins, but lectins are little proteins that are found in foods, especially grains and beans, legumes, peas and lentils and foods like that, that are little proteins that plants use to protect them from predators. But because we harvest our foods early, we harvest our foods when the lectin levels are at the highest peak. Now, lectins, when they're at the highest peak, what they do is they damage our gut lining. They cause a condition causing increased intestinal permeability that pulls the tight junctions of our gut apart and allows our gut to literally seep in undigested foods, bacteria, yeast, inflammatory products, and it creates a mess in our gut. So again, the foods that are most commonly associated with this are wheat, high sugar diet, high processed food diet, and lectins, especially our beans and tomatoes and nightshades, and again, the other grains like corn. So I teach people how to cut these foods out for a season, usually a couple of months, 2 or 3 months. Then we introduce them in and we literally allow the gut to heal.
But doctor, we're talking corn on the cob here. Come on. We got Tabor corn not far from here, southern Alberta. Peaches and cream, it's so good. You can't cut that out of your diet. Come on, man.
Well, I'm not saying forever. I'm saying for a short season, let's give the gut a rest so it can heal. Then you can introduce those back in. And some people have to rotate them every 3 or 4 days, but they can still generally eat them. But instead of genetically modified corn, use the organic corn, okay? And so I teach them what to do to heal the gut so we can keep the gut healed and experience good gut health as well as good mental health, as well as lose weight, which prevents most every disease.
So what kinds of vegetables specifically should we really be eating right now? Does it make any difference if they're raw or cooked?
Well, again, yes. And again, lots of veggies is important. And now raw vegetables, some people can't tolerate as much. They need to cook them. Some people have to limit their cruciferous veggies. The more veggies you can eat, the better. But a lot of people with gut issues have to limit those. So we put them on certain vegetables that are real gut friendly, like sweet potatoes and yams are very gut friendly. They literally start to heal the gut. High fiber foods. Now, again, the fiber is generally in the stems of the vegetables, the asparagus, the broccoli, not necessarily in the flowering portion, but in the stems. Also, certain foods like garlic and onions are full of these prebiotics that really help to feed our good bacteria. And then good bacteria foods such as goat milk yogurt or goat milk kefir, as well as sauerkraut and kimchi, or just taking probiotics is so important for restoring the gut. But one of the best foods for the gut are what we call resistant starches, such as green bananas. Now, don't overeat your green bananas, but start with maybe 1/2 or 1 green banana, not necessarily dark green. Why green bananas? They're full of resistant starches that feed the good bacteria and heal the gut. And also green papayas, green mangoes to put in your salad. And then polyphenols, olive oil, dark chocolate, berries, tea. These are full of polyphenols that literally heal and soothe the gut, full of antioxidants and phytonutrients, especially high phenolic olive oil. And I go in detail about these powerful foods that we use to literally let food be our medicine that heals our gut, but also it helps to plant the good bacteria, which will actually protect our brains. When the gut is damaged, eventually it'll affect the brain and create brain fog, memory issues, and eventually maybe even dementia. So by restoring gut health, we're protecting our brains from degeneration in the future.
Now, we touched a little bit on protein earlier, and it's important to have protein in your diet, but how much protein, doctor, and what kind should we incorporate?
Well, good question. Again, most of us are eating way too much red meat, way too much pork. We find the healthiest types of protein are your chicken and your fish and your turkey and some pastured eggs. Those are the healthiest, and I say don't overconsume red meat, because red meat is generally high in saturated fat. And we found that a lot of saturated fat, like in red meat, like in butter and cheese and cream and coconut oil, will cause us to absorb a byproduct of gram-negative bacteria cell membrane called LPS, lipopolysaccharide. I know it's a mouthful, but these are highly inflammatory particles that literally go through our gut lining, and then they go through our brain, blood-brain barrier, and they inflame our brain, and they create inflammation throughout our gut and our brain. And an interesting statistic is people with Alzheimer's and dementia have 3 times more LPS in their brains than the average person. When you eat a lot of saturated fat like red meat, you're inviting dementia, LPS into your brain. So that's why you got to go easy on the red meat, not so much fatty meats. If you eat red meat, make sure it's the lean filet. We've had to change everything because of this new information on LPS and the brain, lipopolysaccharides. Because literally those saturated fats hitch a ride on that lipopolysaccharide, enter the brain and inflame the brain, but also inflame the gut and create mass inflammation throughout the body.
Now, what about fruits and nuts? How important are they to a healthy daily diet?
Very important. Again, the best fruits are the berries. The berries are full of these polyphenols, these phenolics. So I love blueberries. Every morning I start with either blueberries or strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, cranberries. Those berries are critical. But so again, the berries are critical. Nuts are critical too. Those are those good fats. That's why I tell people this is a gut-friendly Mediterranean diet without all the wheat. Okay, we're taking the wheat out, corn for just a season, and then we're putting back in organic corn and moderation in wheat. And some people have to avoid wheat because when people get off wheat, their gut heals and they feel so good. They say, that's it, I'm not eating wheat again. They're eating more rice, okay? And an interesting part is the brown rice is what inflames the gut when the gut has been damaged. So we take them off the brown rice and we can put them on the white basmati rice, and it doesn't generally inflame the gut near as much as the brown rice due to the lectins. I talk a lot about the lectins in the book to explain it because people are totally unaware. The doctor's unaware. But when you cut these lectins out of the diet for a season, like the brown rice, the wheat bread, the corn, the beans, the peas, the lentils, the nightshades, then the gut is able to heal. And then you can introduce them in moderation, and the gut does fine generally.
Now, we only have a couple of moments left here, doctor. What about dairy products, specifically cheese? Does that really help with our gut health?
Now, that's one of the enemies of the gut. The 10 enemies I talk about initially, that's altar food for about 4 to 8 weeks.
Come on, work with me on this here. Come on.
Well, you want your gut to heal, you give up the cheese. Now, let me explain something. There is a form of cheese that does not inflame the gut near as much, like feta cheese. Feta cheese is 70% sheep, 30% goat. It doesn't have the casein A1 in it that inflames the gut, and it has very little lactose that feeds the bad bacteria. So feta cheese is a much better choice, or casein A2 cheese that is much less inflammatory. But we cut out the dairy for, again, about 4 to 8 weeks so the gut can heal. Then we introduce it in. But the best cheese you can eat will be the feta or the sheep cheese or the goat cheese.
So if you recommend staying away from dairy, in other words, perhaps goat's milk, perhaps cow milk, what about alternatives, let's say, like coconut milk or almond milk?
Absolutely. Those are wonderful alternatives. And again, I tell people the lower fat coconut milk, the almond milk is low in sugar, so is the coconut milk. So those are wonderful alternatives. And so again, those are great for those people who have to give milk up for about 4 to 8 weeks. But then when they do, it's amazing what people tell me. Just like they say, oh, you know, the sinus problems I had are cleared up. The snoring I had is cleared up. All the mucus production I used to have, that little mucusy, raspy voice that so many people that eat a lot of cheese, a lot of milk have, clears up. But also the inflammation. It is so many people with joint problems that say when they give up the dairy, oh my goodness, the joint relief they get is amazing. So much to convince people to just either stay off of it or rotate it in their diet only maybe every 3 or 4 days. Or to use, just like I said, the feta, the goat, or the sheep cheese, okay?
Thanks so much for your expertise today, Doctor. Dr. Don Colbert is the author of Dr. Colbert's Healthy Gut Zone, available at drcolbertbooks.com. Thanks again for joining me from Dallas, Texas.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge C News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks for watching.